Before we start filming the podcast, the fourofwandspodcast would just like to pay respects to country and to the dark and young country on which we are filming. We would like to pay respect and acknowledgement to elders past, present and future, and to all the traditional custodians of country. Hi, welcome back to the Four of Ones podcast.
Alright, episode 2.
We did it.
I know.
Welcome back, everyone.
We hope you enjoyed the first episode, and yeah.
A bit of chaos.
That's us. Hopefully we can keep it together this time round.
Less of my loud laughter. At least you're in control of the volume for that.
This is also true. So episode 2.
What are we talking about today?
Today we're talking about self-empowerment. Very, very important topic, I believe. Mm-hmm. What about you?
Especially with any spiritual practice, really. Self-empowerment is like one of its core roots. My UPG, but I very much think that it's rooted in empowerment of the individual, and that's something that's very much what I try to preach to the masses, is that you empower yourself, and then through empowerment of self, you are then able to empower others. So I guess I always relate it to like the rune of Ansuz, which is Odin's rune, and that's all about like gaining wisdom and making sure that you share it. So
I like that. That's quite insightful. I would definitely agree with that as well. In practicing that self-empowerment within self from the spirituality perspective, I believe that it's really important that you're able to do that in order to, if your goal, I guess, is to also bring that to other people too. I guess it kind of comes down to that old saying of practice what you preach.
yeah.
So it's one of those things. I definitely do it as well. It's not as far as the runes and things, but I covered it in the first episode a little bit too, in terms of the gratitude, and that goes towards self as well. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
So, how has spirituality empowered you?
It's definitely helped me in setting boundaries. That's one of the biggest ones that spirituality has given me, is it's taught me how to set healthy boundaries, even in just my general life as well. So not just on the path that I walk in the spiritual realm. What about for you?
How has spirituality empowered me? It's empowered me to, set firm boundaries within the mundane realm as well as within the magical, but also it's empowered me to take action in the face of adversity, in the face of things that might otherwise scare me. I think that's why a lot of people turn to spirituality too. Like most people, I would argue, don't turn to spirituality when they are fully fulfilled within their life. It's often in those times of the dark nights of the soul, or when we feel disempowered with our own life, that we turn towards spirituality. And that's why I believe that spirituality at its core root is for the empowerment of self.
I definitely agree with that as well. You made a really good point there in regards to advocacy, basically. Mm-hmm. And that's probably one of the biggest things that I too have found, is that I'm able to advocate a lot easier these days.
Yeah.
For many, like all walks of life, essentially, where that advocacy is required. Mm-hmm. And I guess that also comes down to the core of our whole purpose of the show.
Yeah, exactly.
Help you find that place and space to be able to also do the same thing and be that change.
And that's why this is like the second episode, because self-empowerment is so important to us. But yeah, self-empowerment, and then through not disempowering others.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I had a point in my head and then it's just like farted away.
If you haven't gotten used to it by now, I'm sure we'll all get used to that on this podcast as Yuri becomes a tomato with hair.
Hush you.
So,
what was my brain going to say? It was going to make a really good point, and now I've put a lot of pressure on myself with how good it was that
it's gone.
It's gone, and it's probably not going to be as good as I thought it was.
Look, with every conversation that you and I have, just in general, it always ends up circling back and it'll come around. So I have no doubt that at some stage in this episode, we will get to the point of what Yuri was trying to say at 3 minutes in.
Right. Okay, so I guess another question is like, how important do you think that empowerment of self is?
Really important. I guess from my own personal experiences as well, self-empowerment is one of the core values and one of the bases of how I practice what I practice, or how I go about doing the things that I go about doing as well.
Oh wait, but before we go further, what is self-empowerment to you?
Oh, now you're going to make me lose my train of thought as well.
We'll circle back.
This is just as disjointed as the first episode. What was the question?
What is self-empowerment?
Self-empowerment to me is a lot of things. I think, as I was saying as well, with boundaries and advocacy, they are a core of it. So this is kind of a double-barreled question, really, because it kind of ties into the next bit, really, that we were just talking about. But it comes down to having that as a foundation, as a strong foundation for self, in order to be able to stand in the face of any sort of adversity for oneself. Even not just talking spirituality and the occult, we come across this face-to-face in our daily lives as well. So if you are self-empowered in all aspects of your life, you're able to advocate for the things that you need most, or that others need most as well. So
yeah, it's
really, like, to me, if there's a scale of 1 to 10, self-empowerment is sitting up there at a 10.
Mm-hmm.
It's a non-negotiable, it's a non-refundable. It's one of those things that you need.
1,000%.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess, like, even if you look at it logically within magic, if you, as a witch, if you disempower yourself within certain situations, then how would you draw upon that power then when you are putting it into practice within your craft? So it's even like the most minute things can be a form of disempowerment. So one of the common things that we get on tarot live readings is, will Jay message me back, or blah, blah, blah. It's a very common form of disempowerment, and I'm sure a lot of people have seen that online.
Yeah, especially, like, I guess, again, from a personal perspective, those sorts of questions even are not things that I generally like to answer. I will always give the self-empowerment method. Is Jay going to call me? Do you want to talk to them? Pick up that phone and ring them. Oh, but they've blocked me. Well, there's your answer. You're disempowering yourself by still trying to create a connection where somebody's actions have spoken for them.
Yep.
And that is a form of disempowerment as well. touching on, you know, other things too, negative self-talk. That's a really, really big one. And I guess from the magical perspective, and even I've heard you say it as well, one of the small acts of self-empowerment being mirror magic.
Mm-hmm.
So
100%. Yeah, it's one of those things, I guess, with like, at least within witchcraft, if you think it, it's one way that you could like accidentally, unintentionally like put a hex on yourself or something. You start living the reality because you speak it to yourself so often. Now, this is where it like gets a bit blurred line when there's anxieties and other mental conditions and things like that within, like, it's hard to disempower yourself. It's hard to empower yourself, sorry, in a world that seeks to disempower you, especially if you're in a body that also seeks to disempower you too. Things go wrong in the brain for everyone. We've all got baggage and things like that, but it's in those darkest times, choosing not to give up on like hope for a better outcome or a better life or something like that for yourself. In those times of deep struggle and things like that, going inwards and like focusing on, okay, the small things, how can I like build myself back up from this rock bottom? And for me, that's always like practicing gratitude when all things seem to fail for me or all things seem to have gone wrong. Just practicing gratitude for like the most minute things. So it could be like seeing a butterfly fly past the window or seeing a dandelion growing a certain way, being grateful for being able to drink some water, stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's the small things that build you back up when everything else pushes you down.
Yeah, most definitely. And that gratitude is one of the most, I feel, is one of the most basic ways of building up that self-empowerment. Like you said, even if it is because, you know, of issues within what I refer to as the mundane, because we are all human essentially, and we do have these things that can occur that can add to that disempowerment of self.
Exactly.
So it's, I guess, how do we navigate that from that perspective? Well, as you were saying, some of the basic things, they may not seem, you know, effective immediately in a moment, but with practice.
Consistency.
Yes.
With consistency, it makes a grander effect. So, like, it also, this is why it's all interconnected within witchcraft. Like, your personal energy is a reflection of your outwards energy. But, yeah, without getting too witchy woo-woo, like, there are small things that we can do to, like, look after and re-empower ourselves. And aside from gratitude, it's all like the stereotypical stuff, like eating nutritious meals and blah blah blah, but doing things that make you feel good. And I love what you do.
Yeah.
You date yourself.
Yeah, I do. And that's okay, because, you know, so like this kind of touches on another point that, you know, we can circle back to essentially, but so many of us seek that empowerment from others, from connection with other people. So it's one of those things that I do for myself, is to ensure that I'm connected with me. I'm connected with myself. I'm empowering myself.
Yeah.
So yeah, I do. I take myself out on dates. I take myself out on coffee dates. I have, you know, brunch dates with myself.
So cute.
Take myself on, you know, little nature walks. And
With a mirror. Mon chéri.
I guess I love myself first, and then allow for the others to come in. And again, as you were saying, that takes consistency. It takes practice, because there are some days that I don't feel like doing that. And I also show myself that
Holding space.
yeah.
Holding space for yourself is so important. That's like a part of re-empowerment. Like, so often we're taught that our vulnerabilities are weakness. They are something to shy away from and keep hidden. But they are often a lot of our strengths. A lot of strength can be bought even from the negative stuff. The negative stuff can give you immense strength to be able to advocate for other people, especially in witchcraft when it comes to baneful magic and things like that. Baneful magic's often a taboo topic, but for the most part, it's seeking a form of justice. It's giving power back to the victim, or the person seeking justice or whatever. It's giving them their own power back, because something else failed them or whatever. It's seeking a sense of justice. And I forgot where I was going with that point. My brain was just like...
I'm gonna have to edit some dings in here for every time you lose your train of thought.
My brain just goes 1,000 miles a minute, and it's just all of these interconnected things. But yes, empowerment is huge, especially baneful magic. I hate how much of a bad thing that baneful magic gets, but whatever. That's coming in a later episode with a special guest.
Yes, so we'll, a lot of, I guess, if anything, a lot of these topics at the beginning are kind of just going to be very general, very overview, so stick with us. We are going to expand on it, sort of like how Euryale has explained that her Patreon is from beginner. We want to give you those foundational stepping stones, essentially, so that you can come along on the journey with us.
Yeah, exactly. We don't ever want to start further along on the journey. We want to accommodate everyone, include everyone. Okay, but I've got some questions here because that's how my brain works.
Yeah.
So what does it mean to you to be self-empowered?
I'm going to throw to you because you always ask the questions, so you can start
It's
off.
been 2 episodes. What do you mean I always ask the questions?
Yappa.
Shut it, please.
So Euryale, what does it mean to be self-empowered?
So standing firm in your boundaries, that's the biggest one for me. Standing strong in what you as a person, as an individual needs. And obviously there's sometimes we need to be lenient with our boundaries for certain situations. But for the most part, always standing strong for yourself and speaking up for what it is you need and not letting other people treat you like crap.
Would you say it's leniency, or would you... Because I would argue the fact that it's more an open mind.
Yeah.
Because the world
That's probably a better way to put it.
Because the world is evolving as well. And so, I myself, and I will always take that responsibility. I myself, once upon a time, wasn't as aware as I am today. And I am now more aware. So... Yeah, I wouldn't call it leniency.
No.
I'd say more an open mind.
Open mind. Man, people, so many people have closed minds. Don't even get me started.
Now I want to. But I would argue that it is more an open mind because things can change. The world evolves. All of that sort of stuff as well. So.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can't really add much more to that other than what you said because I think you've covered it pretty well. Yeah.
So, why do you find it important to stand firm in your boundaries? Oh, actually, no. Let's change that question. Where's a recent situation where you've had to, that's radio friendly, that you have had to stand firm in your boundaries within the spiritual realm?
I guess with essentially anyone, here I go stumbling over my words, essentially anyone that seeks out to disempower someone or make them feel small, I have real issue with.
Me too. That is going to be next episode that we bring up this conversation. I'm coming for you.
But yeah, anyone, I just don't give that time or that energy to anymore. Yes, it angers me, and in certain situations I will use my voice and I will speak up. But there comes a time where you kind of have to draw the line, on how much energy expenditure you want to put into something. If someone's not going to listen to your reasoning because they themselves have a very closed mind, then there's really no point.
100%. And that's one of the there it goes again.
Ding.
What were we talking about?
Self-empowerment and people that try to disempower you.
Yeah.
Brain lady.
My name's Euryale. Oh yeah. That's man, it really
grinds your gears.
You have no idea, and it's so commonplace. I guess one of the recent experiences that I've had is someone taking my enforcement of a boundary as me being afraid of them or something like that, and that's shit's rampant within the spiritual community. It's no, I am just choosing to protect my peace and keep my energy sacred because we are spirit here having a human experience, yes, but we are still tied and tethered to a human body, which means that we don't have limitless energy to expend, and I refuse to fucking waste it on this silly boy.
Look, it is something that you will encounter on your journey, and for me, I guess, as a reflection sort of instance, it also shows me how far I've come, because, at one stage, perhaps I may have been more reactive and more righteous, so I felt at the time, to argue back.
Yeah.
But now that doesn't serve me anymore, and my energy is placed best elsewhere. I would rather continue living my life happy as anything and continuing on my true path, which is that aspect of self-empowerment and helping empower others.
Yep.
I could spend, 45 minutes arguing back and forth with somebody, or I can block them, move on, and keep doing what I do, which is potentially empower 3 or 4 other people within that time frame.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there's nothing wrong with setting a healthy boundary in that regard.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And this is where discernment comes in as well. So discernment is a form of self-empowerment. It's your ability to trust yourself to know what is right for you and what you should expose yourself to. So by having a firm boundary and choosing to block, move on, and not engage anymore, that was my choice in that situation. It might not be someone else's choice. They might feel disempowered by that, and that's so okay. It's all about choosing to do what feels right for you, but also acknowledging that actions do have consequences. So, yeah, just be mindful of that.
Yeah.
Actions do have consequences, and your girl lives for the consequences.
Look, and I guess too, those who take away from our who are there to take away from our own self-empowerment or empowerment of others, who sit in that fear-mongering energy and who continuously will try to manipulate a situation or push their own agenda are...
Coming up in the next episode.
Yeah.
But
when they do that to an individual as well, like, that's, again, coming up on the next episode. Can we tell them what the topic is so that they understand?
Yes, so the next episode's all about spiritual narcissism, how to, like, identify them, what one is, how to, like, remove yourself away from that situation. And this is all coming from personal experiences. We are not professionals of, like, medical realm type thing.
Of the human experience. We are not professionals when it comes to the human experience, and we can only speak from our own experiences and from, you know, I guess some of the things that we have learnt along the way. But, you know, that's something that also needs to be considered when we talk about all of these things.
Yeah.
So
when do you feel like it's most common for someone to be disempowered on their journey?
I feel that it's when they come to essentially that crossroads.
Yeah. What is the crossroads?
Well, essentially of exploration. So they will spend, you know, quite a considerable amount of time in their journey for learning and knowledge, essentially seeking knowledge. That once they have what they need, they struggle with knowing what to do next. What to do with it. And a lot of them then start to lose hope. Yep. And hope is the biggest thing, and we continue to touch on this quite a lot throughout. But yeah, hope being the biggest thing. Once they start to lose sight of hope, that's when that disempowerment comes along as well.
Yeah.
And this is also why, again, I'm going to throw back to you.
I freaking love the story of hope. Every time I think about hope.
Honestly, maybe that's something that we should share as part of the story time for today.
Sure.
You know.
Okay, well, I'm just going to paraphrase a whole bunch because, like, yeah. But anyway, so the story of, like, Pandora's box is ultimately the story of hope that I always reflect on.
Whose box?
Pandora's. You know, the little jewelry shop. Oh, hey, Pandora, what's in your box? Couple of beads, love.
So where were you with the story again?
Yes, Pandora.
Did you do this with the car story last time?
Oh, shush you.
Right.
Don't do that.
Go on.
It looks like you're about to do a sneaky pop-off.
Go on.
Anyway, Pandora's box, the story. So, obviously paraphrasing heaps. So, the gods gifted Pandora a box to look after, and it contained all of the pain, misery, and suffering of humanity. And she was told not to open it, but she was pretty much like, curiosity kills the cat, and
I'm
just gonna have a little sneaky peek what I got for Christmas in this box. So she opens the box, and lo and behold, all of the pain, misery, suffering of humankind disperses throughout the universe. And all is wrong. Everyone is suffering. Everyone's like grieving non-stop. It's just an awful time. And she's like run back to the gods with the box, and she's like, I'm so sorry. I just wanted to have a little sticky beak. Can you put all of this back in the box? And they're like, so's love. Yeah, broke your board. And then they're like, well, if you open the box again, then you'll unleash what truly is amazing in the world. And so she does that, and down the bottom of the box she sees a little sparkling star, and that star is hope. which I argue is humanity's most important and powerful emotion. And so she releases hope back in the world, and I find that amazing because it's like even in those darkest of times, hope for something more can always get you through. And that hope for empowerment of self, hope for being in a situation where you can like stand up for yourself because you know better, all of that type of thing. Hope is fantastic, and we stan hope. Mm-hmm. Stan her.
Mm-hmm. So
clicks for hope. Ow, I just knuckled myself.
Bloody hell. Anyway, yeah, so that, I guess that's where I find it's, I love hearing that story. I just have to say, sorry.
It's my favourite.
Bouncing over, but yeah, that is where I find that people feel
the most disempowered.
Disempowered on their journey.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. I find that, like, for me, at least with what I've encountered, yes, it's at the crossroads where people feel lost or whatever. But it's also at the start of your journey within spirituality. Mm-hmm. I find that a lot of people feel disempowered, and they often seek for guidance, rightly so, because you find unity in community. But unfortunately, we are in a world where there's a lot of spiritual communities that don't have the individual's best interest at heart, and often people will fall into the wrong communities, and that will perpetuate that cycle of disempowerment. So, in saying that, we do have an online community within the Discord, the Wild Occult, which will again be linked in the bio here. So if you are seeking unity where all perspectives are welcome, unless they are abhorrent and completely against anything that we stand for, then yeah, all are welcome.
I just want to preface this by saying, like, we're not judge and juror either in this.
No.
Just, simply put, just don't be disrespectful. Don't be set out to...
Don't be a bigot. That's my biggest thing, okay? Don't be a bigot against people for things that they can't control. And that includes culture, that includes orientation of gender, it includes sexuality, all of that. Like, Don't be a bigot. Don't be an asshole. This is a safe place, safe space for everyone, including religious views and things like that, even though I personally am not religious. Everyone's welcome in this space. Just don't be a bigot.
Yeah.
And don't tell me what to do. No.
Have the respect to walk away. Like, if you don't have that self-respect to walk away. Like, if you don't have the same view as somebody else, that's okay.
Mm-hmm. That's how we grow, though. It's like through exposure of different perspectives.
You don't have to like everything that's coming out of somebody's mouth. Like, otherwise, if that was the case, what a boring world we would live in.
Right.
Like,
1,000%.
Yeah, that then takes it into another topic as well, like, duality and things like that. But we'll cover that off later. We
100% will.
Yep.
Do you have any questions, or do you think like do you feel like we've covered everything?
I think as a very basic foundation, yeah, I think so. Like, we've covered quite a bit so far. How
would you tell someone if they are feeling, from your own personal experience, if they are in a moment of disempowerment and feeling hopeless and whatever, how would you tell them to re-empower themselves?
By going back to the basics. I always tell people to go back to the basics. And the basics being, for me, it's always about that gratitude, that gratitude of self, empowerment of self through little activities. Those are the things that I always say to people that are very much at that stage of I don't know what to do.
So what does that basics look like to you? What do you do?
Everything that I do for myself now, I would call basic, in terms of dating myself.
Basic bitch.
Things like, taking myself out for a coffee, things that are not done because of duty. So if you are to like follow me, yeah, again, tongue tied. If you are to follow me on TikTok and you do jump into one of the lives, I generally end each sort of session by stating, make sure you do something for yourself that is not because it is a duty. Right? We all live, we all have to, go to the bathroom, keep on top of hygiene, things like that are, they're a duty. But do things for yourself that you wouldn't normally do, that aren't, part of your day-to-day life. Like, yes, okay, getting a coffee or having a coffee for me it's a duty because I need it to function. But purposely going out on my own to discover a new cafe, which is not something that I have the ability to do in my day-to-day life, is something that I do to date myself. Mm-hmm. And that, for me, is empowering.
Yeah.
Going for adventures and walks in places that I normally wouldn't. Mm-hmm. That's empowering for me as well.
Yeah.
It can be little things like, you might set out to even just be in the kitchen cooking something for yourself rather than, it doesn't always have to be about going out. Let me preface that as well.
Mm-hmm.
It's more so to just not be your day-to-day. Like, there are so many people out there as well who are like, caring figures and have responsibilities and so on and so forth that lose themselves in a moment as well, and that can feel and add to that feeling of disempowerment too. And I guess mm-hmm. I come across a lot of that as well.
Yeah,
is that people forget that they are human, they do have limits, and yeah.
Yep, you got to fill your cup up first before mm-hmm. you can fill up other people's. That's which is right. Why we empower self and then empower others through that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, as someone that's like been in the dark souls of the night many times through their life, one thing that I would recommend, this probably won't go for a lot of the listeners, but if you are someone that has been stuck in bed with depression or whatever for days, weeks, however long it's been, keeping wet ones next to your bed mm-hmm. and starting small that way. That's a really nice way to start to feel human again. Brushing your teeth, showering can feel so daunting. Mm-hmm. So that one's a nice one to mm-hmm. start to re-empower yourself to feel human again.
Yep.
But
I guess too, like, no matter how small that act of kindness to oneself is, don't discredit it.
No.
That is, even if it is those things that you are normally able to do, especially in the instance as Yuri was saying as well, don't discredit it.
Mm-mm.
You are allowed to have those days. And that too, I feel like a lot of people forget that.
Yeah.
In that aspect of things too.
100%. And like, in a year's time, when you reflect back on that time, you may feel guilt or whatever. Empowering yourself to get to a point where you can look back at the past with compassion for yourself, because you are no longer that person anymore. You've grown, or if you are still that person, holding compassion for yourself the entire time. Like, compassion is such an empowering emotion too. It can also help you step forward through some of the most difficult states of being mm-hmm. as well.
Yeah, I like that. So in saying that, how would you help someone re-empower themselves on their spiritual journey?
On a spiritual journey?
Mm.
I don't know. For me, it's a very case-by-case situation. So there's been instances where I've just flat out said the truth. And this is me trusting my intuition on how to best approach that person in particular. It's definitely not something that can be a blanket rule. So if someone's come to me disempowered, sometimes I'll be like, flat out say it for what it is, call a spade, and they'll be like, cop it in their stride and take it on board, or they'll just forget that I said anything because it doesn't align with them and their path currently, which is cool, you do you, boo. Other people, I do have to be more delicate, and I make them come to the conclusion by pointing them in directions of certain things. But I guess one way that you could recognize if you are being disempowered by something on your spiritual journey is, does something feel wrong in your like stomach space when you have to do something? Because that can be a sign, that can be your intuition telling you that something's not right, it's not in alignment. Or do you feel a weight on your chest when, again, you have to do something or speak something or whatever? Like, reflect on how your body is reacting to the things that you're being exposed to, because your body often tells you how you feel before you can recognize it, if that makes any sense whatsoever.
I would further add to that as well that, you know, a lot of the times, I guess people look past their intuition too in those sorts of moments as well. And again, probably something that we can cover off in another discussion. But in saying that, and just as a general overview, our intuition is there to serve a purpose. Right? And so many of us struggle with tapping into that or understanding what it is. Some would argue that, you know, in a relationship, butterflies that you feel, in hindsight, may not actually be that feeling that's been generalized in movie settings and things like that.
We all know movies lie.
Yes.
Butterflies are a red flag, all right?
Yeah, if you're feeling those
For me.
You know, yeah, and I, in my experience within myself, I too have had that same experience. So on reflection, that's kind of one of those things. But, you know, and again, not a one size fits all.
No.
It may be different for for other people, so.
Also question things, okay?
Yeah.
Questioning things is a form of empowerment.
Yeah.
Like if someone's telling you to do something, reflect on it, even if you don't vocalize it, reflect on it internally and be like, why?
Yeah.
Why should I do that?
Yeah.
Why should I listen to what you tell me? Even like with us,
Yeah.
why should you care? Ask yourself that.
Yeah. And look, if there's anything that you don't, and I guess on outro, I'm kind of going to say as well, if there are things that you want to challenge with us, by all means, we are very open and approachable in all of the things that we discuss here, and we're more than happy to have a conversation. So
we also hope to do like a couple of live podcasts over time where we can have listeners in and ask like questions in real time type thing. Yeah, that's one of our goals.
Yep.
So that'll be exciting.
I know. I am so excited for what this has to bring. But
right?
Yeah.
Yay!
So, anything else you want to leave us on with for today?
No. My brain just literally goes, Doyle rules!
Well, then that's where I'm going to leave it. But if you've got any questions, comments, anything like that, again, fourofwandspodcast is where you can find us on Instagram and TikTok. You'll also find the links to all of Euryale's shops, Patreon, Discord, etc.
And Wolf's.
Yeah, you'll find my IG and TikTok as well.
Do you have a joke to send us out with? Am I putting you on the spot with a joke?
Yeah, you kind of are.
I don't know any jokes.
Why was 6 scared of 7?
Why?
Because 7, 8, 9.
Duh. Okay, knock knock.
Who's there? See you, bye. It's that button you meant to. See you, bye.
Bye.